Hey everybody, welcome to Watch and Listen. This episode of the Watch and Listen podcast is brought to you by Crown & Caliber. Crown & Caliber is an online retailer of fine luxury watches based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Do you want to buy a watch, sell a watch, maybe trade a watch? Go to Crown & Caliber first, right? You don't want to sell your watch like on Craigslist. It's annoying to deal with forums on the internet or Reddit or Facebook Marketplace. You don't want to do a real P2P, peer-to-peer watch transfer. It's shady. There's big amounts of cash. Crown & Caliber wants to buy your watch in a totally legitimate manner. And as someone who just sold Crown & Caliber 2 watches, not to mention I have bought 2 watches from Crown & Caliber myself, the process was easy. It was slick. You just go to their website and click the Sell Trade button. You fill out a basic form with your watch's name, model number, reference number, and condition. You write a brief description, add a few photographs, and they will get back to you within 24 hours with an offer on your watch. Maybe you want to trade it in for something a little more ballerific. Maybe your tastes have changed. Maybe you're looking to clear out space in your watch case, or maybe it's time to pick up something new. I would recommend crownandcaliber.com. And if you go to crownandcaliber.com and use code MATT150, MATT150, on anything in their store, that's $150 off from your boy Matt Farah. Just like nothing. MATT150. Crown & Caliber's got Rolex, it's got Omega, it's got AP, it's got Vacheron, it's got all the big name watch companies, some of the smaller ones too, and you can find some real gems in there. They do a lot of sales and promotions, and so hit up Crown & Caliber before you buy any luxury watch. And this episode of Watch and Listen is brought to you by Beeline Coffee. I'm going to have a little sip here, right here. I love me some Beeline coffee. Fine, small batch, single origin roasts. They've always got new flavors going up into their store. New for this week, they now have an espresso roast. It's called Snapshot, and it is a darker, more intense espresso bean that you can actually use for coffee or espresso. Although if you make coffee with it, it's going to be intense, buddy. I'm drinking it right now, and that's why I have so much energy. Beeline Coffee has been a sponsor for a long time. I truly love their product. They are fine people who love cars and watches and all the things that I like, but more importantly for you certainly, is they make a delicious coffee, and use code CHRONO, CHRONO, for 15% off anything in the Beeline store. Great. Now, this episode of Watch and Listen, actually Nick from Beeline Coffee is joining us in studio. He's hanging out while he's in town with us today. And we are going to be discussing watch care, watch maintenance. I suspect this will be a popular episode. Watch winders. Do you use them? And if so, how should you use them? When should you service a watch? And what goes into a service of a watch? Enjoy this episode of Watch and Listen right now. Hey, hello, what's happening? Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are, whatever you be doing, let's talk about watches. Welcome to the Watch and Listen podcast. Your boy Matt Farah here with Cameron Weiss. Yes, who's predictable with his intros.
It's kind of my thing now.
Yeah, no, it's a build up and then a right off the cliff. But you look good on the Cameron, on the header of our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Watch and Listen podcast. We have a custom URL now, so subscribe. Hit me up on Instagram, The Smoking Tire. Hit up Cameron on Instagram, not The Smoking Tire, at Cameron M. Weiss. Sometimes you go on autopilot, kids. And in the studio with us today, in what we can nickname the Noah's Arcade episode of Watch and Listen podcast, Nick Quarta of Beeline Coffee.
Cheers, gentlemen.
He's not just a watch enthusiast, he's also a sponsor. Willkommen. I know. That's the hit him up at Beeline Coffee.
That's us. And there's actually a couple of glamour shots of Cameron on it.
Oh, look,
on
and
IG
here's
right now.
this is
Oh yeah.
look, it's
Shot yesterday.
Cameron's Tinder profile picture.
Yeah, we got to find some new angles.
Yeah, that's the angle, really, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
the
It
dramatic,
seems like a lot of hours. Of
the
Cameron's
dramatic
life
crunch. It really
spent
makes
right
you
there.
think about back surgery and watchmaking.
How is that, by
Right?
the way? I mean, it looks like
look
you've
at
got
this
the armrest
position.
there. It's
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty
I'm lucky
comfortable.
because I'm doing so much more than just the assembly. So I'm up and moving around quite a bit as well. But for the guys that are at a workbench just assembling all day long, for 30, 40 years, you could definitely have some back issues.
Yeah, I mean, is the move? Is it all about the desk?
Definitely about the desk. You can kind of see the desk is high.
yeah.
You got your elbow pads.
My elbows are up on the elbow pads there. The elbow is a little bit lower than the
you
shoulder
definitely
so
gotta
that
slide
your
through.
arms don't go numb. But you still end up having to hunch a little bit and kind of curl your back and lower your head to get in there and do the really fine manipulations when you're doing assembly.
It's as someone who's had 2 back surgeries. Fuck that
As
noise.
somebody who works on stuff and fancies himself pretty good at it, I see that and I go, God, that's way too precise.
Well, I mean, just looking at his tools and his little
Yeah.
baskets of stuff over here.
Perfectly sharpened screwdrivers.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what would be more difficult for a klutz like me. Because every time I work on a car, I cut my hands all
Yeah.
up. But if I tried doing this, it would just be a disaster. You can't. You need to have the skill set ultimately, right? Didn't you tell me that
Yeah.
people go to watchmaker school and then decide they aren't physically capable of doing this work?
Yeah, there are people that go and they might make it through the whole program, possibly. Sometimes they're out before the program's finished, but sometimes they'll make it through and they just can't do it. You know, they can make it through the program, but to do it day in, day out, it takes a lot of patience, a lot of focus, and also it's demanding having you sit all
Yeah.
day working on
Yeah.
watches.
It's very gnarly. Well, today on the show, we're not doing an interview thing. Nick's hanging out and feeding us coffee. We're talking about maintenance and caring for your watch, maintaining your watch, and in a little bit, Cameron is literally going to do a service on one of his watches, on a Weiss watch, here for us, so you can actually see when you take your watch in to get serviced, what is it that they're going to do. But before that, I did want to do a couple minutes on watch winders because I get a lot of questions about those. I imagine you do as well, Cameron.
Yes.
I think if you are the kind of person that has multiple watches, a watch winder can be very beneficial. And or if you're the kind of person that has a very complicated watch that would be more trouble than it's worth
Yeah.
to reset all the time.
Certainly, you look at some of those complications and you're like, oh, that would be a lengthy process to reset the...
Well, on our
Yeah, well,
which
what-
you
the
haven't
last
seen yet, Nick.
episodes.
Yeah, our last episode that you haven't seen yet was the crazy complications
Oh,
episode, and
nice.
so Cameron on my perpetual, I can say my perpetual now.
Yeah.
And we had a watch on the show last week, and I wanted it. And I bought it.
This is
Crown and Caliber.
becoming an expensive podcast.
No,
for you to
Crown and
produce.
Caliber has to have known when they were like,
Yeah.
"Here's what's going to happen. We're going to give them money, but we're going to get it all back."
In 90 days or less.
In advertisement, no. Farah is just going to spend it all. So the watch winders, bunch of different brands, bunch of different styles of winders out there. From the very, I have this one. I have a really basic
One
one.
over there, yeah.
Here we got a basic one.
Same manufacturer.
Yeah, these are both from Wolf, pretty well known. So I'm like blocking Nick's shot.
No,
here,
it's
but-
good. Actually, I would just love to see the front of the winder if that's
I'm
possible.
sorry. We could, the other one looks great. You got to
Stack
see
this
it.
one so I
You have
can
to
see
look in the shot to see it here.
There we go.
So this
Yeah,
one
it's
is
cool.
basic. It has an on-off switch, and it has one thing that it does, which is that it goes both ways. Ooh, bow, chicka, bow,
Like
bow.
a coaxial movement.
So
Yeah.
what I'm told is that most watches will wind both ways, right? Cameron, can I get a confirmation or? He doesn't want to commit to that.
Yeah, I can't commit either way on that one. But the thing is, if it winds both ways, it'll handle both watches.
Right. Yeah,
If
yeah.
it only winds one, if the winder's only spinning in one direction, it's only going to handle half the watches.
That's a good point. So this one I have this one is sort of where I would start in terms of like buying one. This one's a couple $100, but it goes both ways. As I look, wait, I think I can zoom this shot in. Wait a second. Oh, let's do that. Boom.
Nice.
So it's slightly out of focus in that distance, and I'm sorry. But on the left we have a Speedmaster, and on the right we have the IWC Perpetual. And the Perpetual, like I'm going out of town for 2 weeks, and I'm not going to bring that because I'm going international, and but I don't want to have to reset the date and all that stuff when I get home. So you throw it in the winder, and then it's good when it comes back. So Cameron, if you're buying a winder, do you need one? Do you want one? And if so, what kind do you want?
So the big thing people ask me is, do you have to use a winder if you have an automatic watch? Mm-hmm. And the short answer is no, you don't have to. It's not going to damage the watch to sit not working. What will damage the watch is if you have a perpetual or you have something kind of complex and you damage it while you are setting it.
Which we went through in the complications episode. There's a whole bunch of ways to break that watch.
So the sitting there will not break it. But every time that you go to start it back up, you could break it.
Yeah.
So
now, some say,
helps.
though, that keep... Oh, have I put this on wrong? It's popping out a little bit. Some say that keeping it moving like it is in the winder right now will wear out components. Some say that letting it sit will wear out lubricants. What do you do? What do you do? Who do
it's
you listen
always going to need service if it's a watch you wear and use. It will always need service around 5 to 10 years, depending on the type of watch. Your lubricants are going to be shot. 10 years is really the maximum amount of time you'll ever get out of any lubrication in a watch.
Okay.
So the lubrication will stop working properly no matter what, whether it's running on one of those or it's sitting in a drawer.
Okay.
The difference is if it's on one of these and the lubrication is shot, it will start to damage components.
Oh.
Same as if you were wearing a watch and the lubrication is shot. If you've been wearing a watch 30 years and it's never had a service, you're consistently adding damage to those components. And at some point, you're going to need a service, possibly some replacement parts.
Yeah.
But there's no damage when the watch is just sitting and the lubrication is dead.
Right.
Because nothing's moving, so
Okay.
you're good to go.
So that's why, like, it's not that you're going to, quote, overwind this thing.
Yeah,
It's that
you
if
cannot
it's already
overwind it.
damaged and you just continue to move it around,
You're going to damage it further.
You could damage it like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once your tire's flat on your car,
Yeah.
don't drive.
Yeah, if you keep driving, now you're going to
Yeah.
break your wheel. Now you're going to
Exactly.
break your this. Now
The
you're going to
simple
do that.
analogy would be like driving on the same motor oil all the time, right? Like eventually.
Yeah, eventually you're going to wear other things
Some
out.
components
Yeah.
out. But
Yeah, I
it's
guess if
gonna
its
take a
car
long time.
sits there with oil in it, it's not going to... Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so I've always sort of just been on the impression that it's really for this exact thing I'm doing. I've got a very complicated watch that I wear a lot, but I'm going out of town for a couple weeks and I don't want to reset it when I get back.
Yeah.
That's pretty
That's
much
what it's for. That's
yeah.
really all it's for. Keep the watch running so you don't have to reset it.
So what if you have, like, look, I just pulled this up and I have no affiliation with this brand, but like, check me out here. We got
Whoa.
this cabinet, 64 watch winder, and look at this, guys. It's on sale because the retail is $230,000, but it's $103,500 off.
It's a considerable
So
savings.
it's only on sale for $126. I want to click add to cart so bad. I mean, I know nothing's gonna happen, but I just want to click add to cart. But so here's a cabinet that holds 64 watches on winders. So not that I'm specifically saying you shouldn't buy this or you should buy this or something like this or even, but like someone who's got this is keeping a lot of watches at the ready.
yeah.
Is there a practical reason, really, unless this guy happens to have 64 perpetual
And he
calendars,
wears one every day
Yeah.
on a 64
right? Is there
rotation.
any practical reason for something like that?
I don't think so. I can't imagine one.
Right?
But maybe I'm not in the same realm as that guy.
Well, you
who
don't
has
have a
the
billion to
$230,000 cabinet.
Yeah,
Well,
you know.
I mean, I'm sure you met some customers when you were at AP and these
Yeah.
big companies
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that are pretty deep in the hobby. And so have you seen any of these watch closets full of winders? Or is,
I do know of a handful of people that have
Yeah.
setups like this. either built into safes.
Yeah.
Some so large that they had to be craned into houses.
Yeah.
So there are people out there with very complicated watches, and many of them.
You know what
But I don't know if they're wearing them.
I guess the
know?
luxury would
Yeah, they
be
can
that
just be
it's
collectors.
always
Yeah.
ready should you want to
But
put
if
it
you're
on.
not wearing it, then it really shouldn't be on a winder, right?
Yeah, if you're not going to
Yeah.
wear it, then there's no reason for it to be on a winder.
Yeah.
Just save it, then no parts wear, no matter what the quality of your oil, the parts will not wear.
So we're saying the ultimate luxury is perhaps to have a Swissman who stands in your closet and prepares a watch for you should you decide to wear it.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what the Wolf people actually told me when I was discussing winders with them? The dopest watch winders that they have ever seen are built into people's yachts.
Sure.
You go on like a
that makes
300-foot yacht, and you've got one of these cabinets
Sure.
that is full, and just, which is ironic because a yacht moves. So in theory, you should the motion of the ocean.
Would the motion of a boat, if we just sort of strapped an automatic to the side of a sailboat and sent it out, would it be sufficient to wind the
I
sucker?
bet you it would. I bet if it was a small boat and you were on the ocean, yeah probably.
It takes about 10 to 15 degrees of angle tilt. So if your boat is tilting on a sailboat,
Yeah.
you're for sure getting it because
Yeah.
the back and
Sailboats move
forth,
a lot.
you're
Yeah.
good. But on a motor yacht, I don't know if it's going to be keeling over that many
Maybe if it
degrees.
was choppy.
You know? Yeah,
and
if it's
if
choppy.
you were
and-
going through chop.
yeah.
Okay. Well, so I forgot to mention in this particular watch winder, not that I'm doing a commercial, but what's good about this, there's a knob on each side. Let me zoom back in. Well, let me do this favor for you folk and zoom back in there. So here we go. So right now it's showing different sides. So we can turn these off. And if you go, it's ABC. A is one way, B is the other way, and C, it alternates. So it takes 10 seconds once you start going, but most watches, you pretty much want it to go both ways, to alternate. And so they're synced, but right now I've set it so they're going to show it's going to oscillate both ways. And, well, how do you know what your watch needs, guys? Well, I found, and I'm sure other people are going to be like, duh, but I found this thing called Orbita Watch Database, where you can go look your watch up. Pick a watch. Pick a watch, any watch, boys.
AP Royal Oak Offshore.
AP Royal Oak Offshore. Where's Audemars? Wait. Is it? Where's Audemars? Oh, sorry. A is divided. Audemars.
There we go. I saw the Royal Oaks in there.
There. Here we go. Royal Oak. So let's say you've got a Royal Oak Offshore. Here, pick your Royal Oak Offshore. So here it'll say the direction in your column. It's got the watch and the movement. So clockwise, counterclockwise, or both. And then this column is turns per day.
So you need to know the caliber, obviously, that your watch is running, because in a case like the Royal Oak, there could be potentially a number of them. Some of them are going counterclockwise, some are going clockwise.
And there are many, for instance, we talked about the Rolex Daytona has used three. Only one of those movements has been automatic, hasn't it? Or two? Two of the
two
three.
have been
Two of
automatic.
three,
The El
yeah.
Primero and then their in-house.
Yeah, so you can look this up, and then it's this particular watch winder that we have here doesn't have an adjustable turns per day. Some of the other ones do. Once you start getting more expensive.
Sure.
But it won't necessarily damage your watch if you just put it on there and it's standard at 800 rotations per day.
That's
It's
kinda
not
what I
gonna
read.
Damage anything.
Yeah, I read 800, 900 is sort of the standard programming on these, and most watches are good for that.
You cannot overwind a mechanical watch.
No, and it's fun. Look at that. That's fun. That's fun. And then you take this guy out. So that's how you wrap your watch around this pillow, and then it just goes right into the barrel. Boom. That's that.
So with respect to overwinding, Cameron, so automatics, as I understand, I mean, you could just keep cranking on the crown on most of them, and eventually you're just going to reach a point where it's no longer winding, but just sort of freewheeling.
The spring will slip.
Yeah.
So
And
it will
that's
be locked in place, and then when it gets a certain amount of tension, it will slip and
that's
come free without
not the-
damaging anything.
There's not like any additional componentry built into that. It's just the nature of the design, right? Like the spring just slips.
Exactly. The
essentially,
spring just slips inside the barrel, which it does wear a little
mean,
bit on
yeah,
the inside
over-
of the barrel wall. The spring is
Right. I
dragging
guess you wouldn't want
along.
to do that
Over a
incessantly,
whole
but
lot of time,
Yeah.
that could, but...
What
But
would you
that should be
say-
happening all day on your wrist while it's being worn as well. So the winder is not going to be any different.
Oh, so a properly serviced and adjusted automatic should be keeping sort of a full charge while you're wearing
Yeah,
it?
it should be full while you're wearing it. Yeah. And it should remain full all the time. That's why an automatic watch will typically be more accurate
because
it's always fully wound when you're wearing it.
the
Right, and
literature.
At a lower rate of wind, it's less precise, right?
Yeah.
The literature I read on watch winders while studying for this show claimed, and granted, a lot of these people might have been trying to sell watch winders, that when an automatic watch is on your wrist, it is showing like 50 to 70% of its capacity. You know, it's wound. Whereas if you wind it manually or keep it on a winder, it goes to like 80 or 90% of its capacity. Does that make sense for some reason, or not make sense?
Yeah, so what can happen is as you get really close to full wind, the oscillating weight might not necessarily have enough weight to put that last little bit of wind in it to really crank it home. So you'll notice when you first pick up your watch, if it's been sitting and you just put it on your wrist, you'll feel that weight flying around in there real easy. Right. If you've been wearing your watch for the whole day and it's almost fully wound, you'll notice you don't feel the weight anymore because it's kind of bouncing around in there.
It's
like,
not really.
It's maybe
like
not
if I
even
take
making a
my
full
weight,
rotation.
like the weight
hang
in
on.
the back of my watch.
Well, let me go to the. Yep. This, by the way, is a Weiss automatic movement.
Yeah.
With a special coating on the...
Yeah. This has a special coating that is very slippery, actually. So
the new
the idea
hotness.
is that less air resistance will take place inside the case as the weight is flying around in there. They don't move that fast to begin with, but it should allow for more efficient winding. But you can kind of see what I'm talking about here.
It's
this
not
is
really
fully
moving.
wound.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to move it around, and it's not freewheeling
You
too
want to
much.
compare it to this one, which should not be fully wound?
Now, this one
flopping around quite easily.
is not fully wound, and you'll see it drops real quick.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just drops. No resistance there.
Right.
So when it's like 90%, 95%,
Yeah.
it starts to not be as efficient winding itself with the weight. So that's why they say a manual wind you'll get to 100%. But
Why would a watch winder get you further than your hand?
It won't.
It won't.
It won't.
Okay. All right. So that's
The
that's
difference
bullshit. The difference is
is-
the physical wind up of the crown.
or if you're not active. If
Oh.
you
Yeah.
if you sit at a computer all day
Yeah,
and your
yeah.
hands are in one position typing and you just answer the phone with the right hand and this hand is barely moving, it might not be enough to keep the watch going on your wrist. So
Fair.
you might have to put it on winder at night to get it up to 95%.
Well, that's interesting.
Or take
Yeah.
a walk.
But
Maybe
if
that
you're-
might be
Yeah, or do some
good help.
some
Or
walking.
they might be telling you something about yourself. That
Yeah.
maybe you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But if you wear your automatic watch every day during the day, there's generally no point to keeping on a winder at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you actually, my impression from reading about winders is that the best ones are the ones, like the difference between cheapy winder and expensive winder is not the movement of it. It's actually the programming and the intermittence of it.
Yeah, because it'll run like that one was running. It'll keep turning, and after it's done 600 rotations for that day, which won't take 24 hours.
No, it takes like,
It takes a few hours, and then it'll shut off until the next day, and
Yeah.
it needs to do those winds.
yeah. So whereas the other one stays moving
Yeah.
throughout the day. The cheaper ones will just be moving all the time.
Yeah.
And you don't really want that. I think. Oh, you know where I wanted to end? Our homie who we met at the Private Watch Society party, which
Yeah.
our homie makes. I'm gonna play his little Vimeo video here. Makes watch winders out of engine blocks. Which hopefully this doesn't come through as sound, and I want to play this because he started with a BMW engine block, super cool, and he now has Porsche ones, and he's working on other ones, and it's called Vulcan Innova, and I mean,
Wow.
You know, he
That's
was explaining
gangster.
this to me, and something really cool is that when you put the watch in there and you turn it on, it's locked.
What does he mean?
The watches are locked in there. You cannot remove them.
oh really?
So you could have this on display in your house, and
And
you
people
feel,
can't steal the
people
watches?
can't just grab it out of there.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't know
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So there you
Oh,
go.
locking
video,
watch
yeah.
pistons. Wow.
Yeah.
So does the Porsche one cost 3 to 4 times more to service?
Yeah. This is like, these things are 20 G's. They're super
I was
expensive.
just making a joke at the expensive portion of
Yeah.
repair.
But what the dude said he was working on was
That is really cool, man.
was his winder mechanism is actually quite modular and can go into any engine block.
Right, so you can retrofit whatever you like.
Yeah, I mean that shit is gangster as hell. It's $20,000, but I mean, damn, if you
have perpetuals that you want to keep going, or
if you got 6 perpetuals, woof,
Yeah.
I'm jealous. I'm very jealous. I feel so cool having one.
yeah,
I don't know. No one, not a single person has come up to me and be like, "That's fucking cool," and yet I feel no one.
I feel very cool.
I feel so cool with
Secretly
it.
cool.
And nobody,
Yeah.
and it's a secret that nobody else knows. It's
well,
like the
as I mentioned
anti-flash.
earlier, I noticed you were wearing that watch in an upcoming photo shoot with our friend Larry Chen from Speed Hunters.
Yeah, I had a couple photo shoots, and I made a point to make sure you could see it. I don't choose which pictures make it in the magazine, but I had to make a point.
It's
to
nicely
wear it.
draped over the fox body.
I know, but is your watch twice as expensive as your car?
Yeah.
Let's
Is
put your car in the
is your
magazine.
watch a coyote motor?
Yeah. Okay, so that's watch winders, I think, right? Anything
Yeah.
else to add on watch winders? I think that's
that pretty much covers it.
covers watch winders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see this guy.
I think your standard automatic
stuff
watches do not need watch winders ever,
Yeah.
but the complicated stuff maybe.
However, the one exception to that,
What's
if
that?
you have something with a date that's not quickset,
Oh yeah.
the AP Jumbo Royal Oak, not quickset.
So could
what
you
else?
literally have
One of
to
the old Submariners, one of those
Yeah.
vintage 1680s. Not going to have quickset on there.
Mm-hmm.
So then you literally have to run the hands around. And if you got to go 20 days, then
a couple
it
minutes,
takes you a little
maybe,
while.
max.
Yeah, and you could potentially
Six-
jam something up as you're doing
That's
that.
true.
And then it's very
It
expensive.
feels wrong, you know,
Yeah.
to spin the
Too
hour
quickly,
hands
yeah.
around 30 times to change your date. It
Yeah.
just feels wrong, doesn't it?
yeah.
Although I have to admit, since I got this, the Perpetual, when I put another watch on now, a different watch, I set the date.
Yeah.
I haven't done that
you
ever.
haven't been
I've
setting
never had a
dates.
watch with a correct date my entire life.
Yeah.
funny.
And now when I put on the watches, I set the dates. Isn't that funny?
yeah.
I'm a little anal about that stuff.
You do
so
the
I have to
dates?
set the date, man. Yeah, so
I
it's a
understand.
short. And
Now I get
actually,
it.
that's why when I'm shopping for old watches, I've tried to get quick set dates because it's a lot more convenient.
It's we don't have the GMT isn't quick set date, but it's got the quick set hours, which makes it go by a lot faster.
Yeah. Well, there's some where you
Yes,
swing
on
it.
the older.
There's some where you swing it to 12 and then back to 9,
Yeah.
right? And that you don't have to go the full rotation.
Yeah, you can just go back and forth.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have an old Omega like that. You
However,
just pedal it back between.
That
can
sounds
cause
like a good
damage
way
as
to
well.
break a
Yeah.
watch. Yeah, that sounds like exactly like what he said in the last episode.
Sure.
Was
Yeah.
like how to break shit. That was pretty much doing that. Was what
There's
he said.
actually, that movement creates friction.
Yeah.
And one thing, so there's the 7750 chronograph, and one way to see if your 7750 chronograph was properly serviced is to go ahead and just
Do
start,
that.
stop, and just do it very quickly over and over again. And if it jams up, it has not been properly serviced, and then you get to service it again.
Good
But
tip.
you create actual heat friction inside the movement when you operate those
doing that?
parts too quickly.
Oh.
And the tolerances on everything are just microns. So a little bit of heat expansion can cause parts like that to jam up or
Seize, yeah.
catch,
Yeah.
and then you could break something quite easily.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
How about that? So let's talk about services. Most people say what, 5 years, 5 to 10 is the interval for a watch.
5 years is pretty standard. 5 years. The oil that goes into a watch is synthetic, which is good. Mm-hmm. It can last 10 years in a refrigerated, clean room inside the vial that it was manufactured in a clean room and put into. Mm-hmm. Inside a watch, it gets hot. It gets sunlight if you have a display case back. Mm-hmm. It gets some humidity. It's also exposed to everything in the workshop as you're assembling the watch. And then movement. It's actually used and
Yeah.
it can evaporate. So it's never, ever going to last longer than 10 years.
Ever.
Not possible. Ever. There is no oil that lasts longer than 10 years in a watch.
My dad's Submariner for 27 years unserviced, wore it every day, is literally just sheer luck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So don't do that.
the watch may keep time
Yeah.
and run perfectly fine. However, you could damage parts.
Yeah, it did right up until it didn't.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
did, and then it just
works
stopped.
fine, and then it just
Yeah.
stops.
Oh, it actually just stopped. Your dad's when you finally
It didn't
serviced it?
fully stop,
Got
but
slow.
one day it started losing 5 minutes a day or
Yeah.
10 minutes a day, and he
Yeah.
took its service. And look, this is anecdotal. This is not data, so don't take this as advice. He bought it new, wore it every day for 27 years, and when it was serviced, finally after it started, all it required was a regular service, and it was
Yeah.
the same price as a regular service. So for him, who is a math guy, not a watch guy, he said, well, 30 years, and the service was $1,000 every 5 years, so $6,000 versus not servicing it and spending $1,000 now. I'm $5,000 ahead. That's his math.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense for a lot of watches. I have one watch here though that I think
We're going to the
it definitely does not make sense for.
okay. Well,
And this is a perfect example of that.
okay. What are we looking at here?
So this is an older Breitling.
I'm actually gonna zoom down on you
Very,
here.
very pretty dial
Yeah.
on this watch.
Okay.
So
Breitling. Zoom
beautiful vintage watch from 1969. Venus 178 chronograph in here. Just like really nice, unpolished, all original, great patina, great
Very pretty
condition.
move.
It's a
Movement.
great piece.
However, if we look closely in there,
Let me see how closely I can look. That's as close as I can look. Does that get
Whoops.
us anywhere?
Let's
Oh
go
boy,
like
you
this.
broke it.
no, we got to get
Can
close
we
in there.
can we
to see this.
autofocus on that?
Nice.
Let's
Here
see
we
if
go.
can autofocus on that.
Yeah, what's the minimum?
I don't know if that. Oh yeah, I can.
yeah.
There we
How about
go.
that? Okay, great.
Okay.
So now what are we looking
So
at?
now you can see this gasket around the edges here.
Is there a gasket there? Is that
There is a
actu-
gasket.
Oh, so it's just it's just trashed, right?
And it's square, flat,
Yeah.
rotted out. It's got rust on it now.
Yeah.
So what we see here is corrosion
on
working
that
its
bridge
way
there,
in
yeah.
on the bridges. There's some corrosion spotting here on that bridge, and some of the steel parts have some light corrosion on them. All just from this bad gasket back here. Doesn't
How
appear.
long would you guess that gasket has been there? Is that the original one, like a never serviced kind of thing?
I don't think it's the original, but it could be 30 years old.
Yeah.
It could
How
be,
old's the watch?
69.
Okay.
Yeah. But essentially, if this watch was left any longer,
Yeah.
this was actually lucky because the mainspring broke in this watch, so it stopped working. Had that not happened and the watch just kept being wound and worn, that corrosion would have gotten onto the pivots of the watch, and it would have worn out the pivots, and the pivots are what are inside these jewels here. All those little jewels and all these little center points, the axles, they would start to wear out. You're essentially throwing sand and grit into the movement. All that moisture is going to go to the jewels. It's going to stick on the jewels, and you're going to rot and rust out your steel parts. And you're going to get unsightly damage on the bridges, which is really irreversible. It's going to actually eat away the material. And this is a vintage watch.
Yeah,
The beauty of it is that it's all original, and you don't want to have to replace all these parts. You don't want to have to replace the bridges. You don't want to have to replace major wheels.
Right.
Some of the wheels, they don't make them anymore.
So is that the end, or is that
So it's not the end because
there
you can.
aftermarket solutions, or
Well, there's not aftermarket, but you could potentially buy donor movements, kind of like cars.
yeah.
and that can get very expensive.
Yeah.
You could have to buy a donor movement, and the donor movement could be $300 to get that one part.
So I'm zooming out here. So if you've got this bit of corrosion now some moisture's gotten through, it's corroded part of this. Anything that's corroded now, do you have to replace it? Can you take it apart and sort of buff that corrosion off?
We wouldn't buff the corrosion off, but there's some things we can do to reverse it and remove it. This is not actually heavy pitting on the movement. There's some pitting on the case because where the case touches that gasket,
Yeah.
there was a lot of moisture sitting in there for a long time. So it could mean that the watch won't be watertight again,
Okay.
which kind of stinks.
Which it probably wasn't going to be anyway. Which sucks.
This
but-
one has a really good case and might be able to get the water resistance back. But if you have too much pitting where those O-rings and seals go, you might lose that forever unless you add material back in there with laser welding techniques and then refinish that surface. But that can be very costly. And all it needed was a service every once in a while, or
Yeah.
at least opened and looked at.
Well, so what I take away from this story is that if the watch is old and special and potentially has parts that can't easily be found or whatever, then preventative maintenance is the key to very expensive problems.
Yeah, if you want to keep something original and really want it to last a long time,
Yeah.
preventative maintenance is good.
But if
'Cause
you
even
were
with
to-
your Rolex, they've got I think 25 years or 30 years of service.
Yeah.
So that Rolex watch you buy today, if you really want to give it to your kid and you don't have a kid yet,
Yeah.
maybe you're going to have a kid in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you want to give it to your kid when they graduate college, it might not be serviceable by the time you actually hand it down to your kid, which
Right,
means they
so
might not have
service it
spare parts.
Service it before you do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you are to buy a new, Rolex or Omega, you could probably push it a
Yeah,
little
your
if
first
you
service,
wanted. Yeah.
the first service you could push for 10, 15 years or until it just
Points to
stops
Omega,
working.
though. When I bought this in August, and whoever buys it from Crown and Caliber will enjoy it because you get your first service free in 5 years.
Yeah, I
With
think
Omega.
That's
That's
a fairly
nice.
new
Yeah,
thing for them. Yeah.
it's a 10-year warranty, and your first service at 5 years is free. So that's plug again. It's available on Crown and Caliber, the Dark Side of the Moon Speedmaster.
Returning for a second to your dad's watch, I think, and my limited knowledge, I think Rolex replaces a fair amount of components by default during the service, right? Like there's a couple items that
Yeah.
they just throw in there automatically. And so that may be, that's mine. That may be sort of why your dad didn't have to go in any
Could be.
deeper, because that
Could
part
be.
was on the standard list of
Yeah.
components that get replaced.
Could be.
Right?
I mean, in the land of Submariners,
Yeah.
my Kermit Submariner, going on my dad's anecdotal advice, I never had my Kermit Submariner serviced
You
either.
had something serviced recently, right? Because I think
Well, that
early
because
episodes-
it
this is
stopped.
the Kermit.
Yeah,
There you go.
I eventually let's see, I got that watch in 07 and no 08 and wore it every day until about a year ago, and it sat for a while, and then I went to go wind it up, and it made a nasty sound. And I was like, "Ooh, this is not good." And but again, they serviced it, and it cost the same amount of money as if it was just a regular service because nothing was damaged.
And this
Yeah.
is also a point about buying older chronographs, especially in things like that. People seem to seek out these Venus movements because there are a fair amount of components available. They were pretty robust, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. So you
What
can
is it?
still,
This is the Breitling?
yeah. So this is a Venus
178
something. There's a bunch of Venus chronograph movements that were used all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And then so these parts are fairly common now, and you can get a hold of them if you
Yeah,
need to.
except for certain ones.
Really?
There's always
Yeah,
those
there's always a
parts
catch,
that
yeah.
if that's the part that's broken,
You're done.
it becomes a parts watch.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
That almost happened to my vintage Seiko. Fortunately, there was a guy in Japan who was able to fix it. So I think,
Yeah.
So the second half of this episode was that we were going to have you service a watch.
Yeah.
So people at home can figure out what actually goes into a service.
Yeah.
And every watch, I guess, is going to be slightly different.
Oh, yeah.
right?
Every watch will be slightly different. This particular watch just has low amplitude.
This is your watch.
And yeah, this is my watch movement here. And it just has low amplitude. So we'll see why it has low amplitude. And low amplitude means that the balance wheel is not spinning far enough back and forth because there's some kind of friction. There's too much friction.
And low frequency would be slow, right? Is that how you describe that, or do you just describe that as slow?
It wouldn't necessarily mean that the watch is keeping time slowly. It just means that it's going to stop because it's barely going.
Right. Okay. So what's wrong with this one? Wait, hang on.
Ooh,
Zoom
there
out
we
a
go.
little bit. Let's adjust our shot slightly here so we have some. There you go. All right. So how long does a service on a watch like you?
Well, this is a really simple movement. This is about as simple as they get. It's 17 joules, manually wound, so you don't have no calendars, no dates, no chronographs. So the number of adjustments are very few.
So if you have a watch that's complicated, does the service take that much longer because you have to service each of the complications or lubricate each of the complications?
The adjustment on each complication is greater.
Okay. So what are we doing now? What did you
So that's
take out
the
there?
cannon pinion. And I just have to get the cannon pinion off because it'll hold the center wheel on, actually.
Okay. Hang
Because
on.
it's tightly pressed on to the center pinion.
Mind your shot here. And you may want to dial down the exposure just a little bit. It's a little hot there. There you go. That
good?
actually may make it a little easier to see.
All right.
Yeah.
So I just took this tiny little cannon pinion off there just to start. Then I can flip the movement over and remove everything from the backside.
Okay.
But without that, you're going to have some wheels that kind of stay put and don't do what they're supposed to do when you're disassembling.
What's the difference between what you just put the movement in right there, that sort of vice grip type of deal, and this round thing that's sitting next to it there?
So the round one has 2 supports. So when you press, like when we press that cannon pinion back on, we want to support the back side of the watch where that jewel is. Otherwise, you could just displace the jewel.
Right.
And then you have to reservice the whole watch once you've already done the service because you have to take it apart, press the jewel height again.
Right.
So these are supports for when you're working on the dial side of the watch. This one, we're not going to do any pressing or anything like that. So we just need to kind of clamp it in there with this little vise holder.
Okay.
Cool. Just so that we have something to hold on to.
So by disengaging the cannon pinion there, you essentially sort of pulled a portion of the gear train out, and now something's not running.
Not a portion of the gear train. That's just, this is where your minute hand is pressed onto.
Oh, okay.
So this actually rotates once an hour.
Oh, okay.
And it's pressed onto the other side of that center wheel pinion.
Cool.
So if you had it back here, the watch would run backwards.
Oh, yeah, right. Goes the other way.
So now this thing is running, and we'll want to take the power down.
How do you take the power down?
So we just release the mainspring.
Oh, okay. So do you release it by pressing something on the...
There's a little click here.
Yeah. Hang on. Maybe I can zoom in enough to see it. Yeah,
So you see the click as I wind it? That thing moving
right,
back and forth?
Yeah, on the right side there.
So
yeah.
all I'm doing is opening it up so it's not engaging a tooth, and then holding it there.
Hold it. Oh, and then there you go.
And then I just release it, let it unwind.
Oh, okay.
And always,
How cool.
always brass tweezers or something soft.
Otherwise, you're going to scratch it up.
Yeah, you'll scratch the bridges, you'll damage something.
Brass tweezers.
Yeah, brass tweezers, or
What else do
I
they
use
make them out of?
I have German silver. So the German silver is really soft.
Yeah.
This is ideal. Typically what I'll use is the German silver, but it's a little hard for me working like 12 inches away.
Yeah.
Rather than hunched over.
Yeah, because those tools are soft, do they wear down?
They do.
Oh.
And we have to constantly retune the edges of the tools, sharpen them up so that parts don't fall out of them,
Yeah.
so that they do the job they're intended to do. Same thing with the screwdrivers.
How neat.
Like a woodworker's plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? All right, here, let me just zoom back out a little bit so it's not as crazy. Okay, there you go.
So we got to remove the balance.
This is probably really hard. I mean, normally your eye is like 4 inches from
Yeah.
this, and now your eye is like more than a foot away because of all this, because of all the. See, now you know what it's like. Normally, people have to drive a car. I got to drive a car while making sure I get the shots, and while you know what I
It's
mean.
not
And doing it's not the same thing when you have to when you're broadcasting at the same time. It's completely different.
Yeah. So then
so
this
there's-
is the balance. This is where anyone at home who buys watches and tries to take them apart and put them back together, this is where they go wrong. They usually damage this part.
Okay.
Almost always, this hairspring gets damaged. You can see that wheel just dancing around on this. You could barely even see the spring.
Yeah.
It's so fine. If that,
Maybe I can zoom in.
if the
enough to
wheel
see
gets
it.
hooked
It's
on
tough.
something, you'll
Right.
bend that spring, and if that spring is not perfect, the watch will not keep perfect time. It might be good in one position, but it's a watch. It's going to be
Yeah.
in every position, so it needs to be absolutely perfect.
Okay.
So this part, we put to the side. Make sure we don't damage it.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I'm basically just going through, disassembling.
Do you disassemble the watch all the way down?
Yeah,
In every service, does the movement get completely disassembled?
it should.
Huh.
Every service should include complete disassembly.
And then are you sort of cleaning you're putting everything into what, an ultrasonic or some sort of special bath?
Everything. So I've got these trays here, and I'm putting the parts into these trays.
Like a
These
tiny carburetor
trays.
cleaning tray.
Yeah. These trays will go into an ultrasonic cleaning machine. And the ultrasonic cleaning machine has multiple jars, and those jars contain cleaning and rinsing. So you've got one cleaning jar with ultrasonic, and then you've got 3 rinsing jars to clean the cleaning solution off of the parts.
Well, oh, so is it actually... Does the cleaning solution leave more residue than the actual like oils and stuff?
I guess so. I mean, there's more of it. The oil is there, but it's only in certain places.
Well, that's true. I guess you're
The whole
submerging
movement,
the stuff.
exactly. You're submerging the movement in it, getting it on every single component.
And since it's designed to clean off watch oils, it would be sort of
Toxic.
counterproductive for it
Yes,
to be there.
very much so.
That's a very good point, Nick. Thank you for... Yeah.
I'm here to point out the obvious.
If you reassemble the watch with watch oil remover all up in it. Yeah. Okay.
So with this, we want to check the jewels that had oil on them.
Okay.
Make sure the oil could be very, very dry. If it's 10, 15-year-old oil, you could have a serious problem.
What if it's 35-year-old oil?
If it's
27-year-old
oil
that I had yesterday.
Yeah, you're going to be... There's all kinds of things that we do to scrape that oil off of the jewels. And you see I switched to the wood tweezers here.
Uh-huh.
Even the brass tweezers can scratch the bridges.
Sure.
And we really don't want to scratch anything.
Yeah.
You don't want to scratch screws. You don't want to scratch bridges. No part should ever be scratched.
So why wouldn't you use wood all the time?
Wood is very soft. So the wood, we're
Dumb.
constantly filing the corners. When I'm working with a steel part, no problem to use the brass tweezers. It's going to be very hard to scratch a steel part with your brass tweezers. Steel tweezers, almost never use them. And steel tweezers are like the worst thing you could ever use on a watch. The only thing we use them for is when we need a really sharp corner. I use them for one particular jewel.
I was going to say, why are they on your desk right now?
I don't use them for anything else other than one single jewel. So we just take all these little wheels, and this was a new...
Wow, so that one bridge piece was really holding that entire assembly together there?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
How many jewels in that one piece? Looks like 4 or 5.
We've got 3 jewels in there, and then there's 3 jewels on the other side on the main plate, because every wheel will have a jewel on one side and the other side.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's essentially a bearing.
Sure.
And they will all be oiled.
So the
So
jewels in a
this
movement
here-
like this, what are they made out of?
They're going to be synthetic sapphire.
Okay.
And they could be any color, really. They don't have to be red. There are movements that I've seen that have blue jewels.
You're Cameron. You're running
Am I
off.
moving?
You're running off the bottom of the
right.
frame there. I'm doing my best to keep up. You're doing
Chasing,
pretty good. But I'm trying to stay zoomed in so everyone can see everything. I've never like real time followed a watchmaker with a camera that trying to make it happen here.
It's a whole new videography challenge.
How many pieces are in this watch, Cameron?
This watch has about 100 pieces in the movement.
Okay.
Now, we don't disassemble all 100 because some of them are press fit tightly together, like a wheel and a pinion. We'll only disassemble the wheel itself as a unit. We're not going to take the pinion off the wheel.
Right.
That's something that's in production, and then
Yeah, we only do that with production.
When you're disassembling the watch, does every part, you have a spot for every part in those baskets, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah. Like
clearly there's a system.
obviously.
Yeah. There is a system, and I've worked with this movement for a very long time, so I know exactly what I'm doing, and I put everything in the same place every single time.
Yeah.
But I could have everything jumbled in one tray and pick the parts out, no problem, just because I'm so used to it.
It seems like that would make your life extra annoying, though.
It can.
Why do that if you don't have to torture yourself?
Yeah, exactly. So we've got little tiny springs that come out, all sorts of little parts.
Let me zoom back out and maybe.
What was that spring for? Was it
That spring was for the click.
click? Okay, I thought so.
So
And when you say click, we're really just referring to a ratchet mechanism that prevents that wheel from moving.
it keeps the mainspring from
both directions,
unwinding.
Yeah. And
So
that's
that-
the only click that exists in the watch?
Yeah, that is the only click.
Are you
The
referring-
terminology,
The terminology, or are you referring to the sound being a click?
it's the terminology. That's the name of the part is the click.
Is that also a sound that it makes?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, if you had a really sensitive microphone, I guess.
Yeah. It'll click as you wind the watch. So then on this, I'm actually just like prying the bridge up with a piece of wood. And that's just so that we protect the part and we're not putting little gashes in everything.
Try and zoom back in on that if I can. There we go.
So that's the main plate. We got the center wheel out and the barrel.
And that's
the
it.
spring is in the barrel.
Oh wait, flip the barrel over. So the spring is actually fully inside.
Inside, yeah.
Yeah. If you show it sideways, you can kind of tell that. I didn't realize that it was completely contained like that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. And so that spring is
So
that
this
spring, right?
spring, this is a main spring here in this bag, and I'm
That's
gonna
for my
open up
busted
this barrel.
Submariner.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me move all this stuff out of here.
Nope.
Make room for the.
So that's the disassembly now,
That's
right?
the
So now you would
disassembly.
take all your parts in your little baskets, and those would go into the cleaning machine, right?
Yeah.
And is it any of it like hand scrubbed or hand scraped, or is it just chemical on, chemical off?
So all the bridges where there's oil on the underside of all those jewels, those will all be what we call pegged out. We take
Yeah, it's like
We
bow,
take a
chicka, wow, wow,
piece of
no.
wood, and we are literally
Yeah.
just pegging with pegwood. This is
Oh.
pegwood, is what we call it. And we're scraping any dried oils off of there, kind of scrubbing, just like a pre-rinse.
Right.
And then we put it into the machine, which is automated, and we'll run through all the cleaning cycles.
How long does that take?
It's about 35 minutes.
And that takes one watch at a time?
It depends on the cleaning machine.
Okay. Yours? I'm just curious.
Mine, I can run 4 watches at a time.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. So that's not so bad. I
Yeah.
mean, time is money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I also 3D printed custom trays that hold our parts properly.
See, this is gangster.
So we can fit more into one
Yeah.
cycle. Yeah. So there's
Don't try this
things
at
like
home,
that.
kids.
That's very
Yep.
gangster. And then I'm sure someone, I mean, going back to, I guess it was the last show, we talked about Ulysse Nardem. When I went to their factory, they have, they're pretty vertically integrated in terms of assembling their movements. And so, they had a machine that was like bigger than what you'd see at a big commercial kitchen,
Yeah.
washing tiny little wash parts.
Yeah.
Hang on. Sorry. Bring back the shot. Where are we at now? Okay.
Here we are. So this is the dial side that I'm working on now. And I just removed a screw there.
Okay.
There's only one screw over here. And this is a tricky one because
Finger condoms.
So normally I wouldn't need them because we're working with a dirty movement, but I'm going to put one on just because I hate having it on film, like touching watch movements, because it's something you really should never do is touch watch movements with bare fingers.
Yeah.
Skin oil is very corrosive.
The same
very
thing with light bulbs in a car. If you're changing your headlight
Yeah,
bulbs,
sure.
you can't touch them.
Yeah, you get fingerprints on them
Yeah.
and it'll etch it right into the glass. So same thing with these guys.
I love that in watchmaking that they don't do gloves though. They just do like finger condoms. Why? I don't understand who made the decision to go against the glove and for the finger condom.
Your hand gets pretty sweaty. I mean, if you didn't have to wear a full
That's
glove,
probably true. It's heat,
Yeah.
heat
Like,
management.
if you put on gloves to work on a car or something, that's kind of the worst part of it is the sweat on the hands.
I hate latex gloves so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, that
I'd
kinda
rather
sucks.
just wash my hands a million times than wear latex gloves. Right now, my hard latex glove thing is I have to give my cat chemo. If I wanted to take a depressing turn for the cat, and you can't touch the chemo, even though you're only
Right.
touching that
Right.
chemo pill for like 10 seconds
Yeah.
before you give it to him. You have to put on gloves
Wow.
to touch a cat. And a cat, when a cat has nails and you're wearing latex gloves, it like the cat sticks
Yeah.
to your hand. It's a mess. But at that watch factory, they had a whole dispenser for like a dozen
Just for
different
finger
size
condoms?
finger condoms.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
That's what we've got. We've got a cabinet with all the finger condoms. And they're all pink because the pink is actually like an anti-static.
What,
So,
pink color?
The
The physical
They
pink
manufacture
color?
pink.
so they
as the-
manufacture different colors
Uh-huh.
that do different things. So the pink
Pink indicates the
yeah, it indicates that
Static, yeah.
it shouldn't
Oh,
be
yes.
picking up pieces of lint and things like that.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be as sticky with static, clingy, I guess.
Yeah, and if it's like black, does that mean it's for going in butts? Is that yeah.
There's some other codes.
Yeah, they don't
used
they don't
exclusively for
show the dirt as quickly.
Okay, so
Oh.
now wait. We gotta go back.
So there's one more step, and that would be putting the balance back on here and taking out the capsules. Capsules
What's
are
a capsule?
That is where you're going to see your problems with timing. That's the one you're going to notice, the capsule and the pallet.
Let's see if I can zoom
get
in
this.
very close. That's about the best I've got there.
I'll do this.
So actually,
Something tells me if we tried to drop that thing in there, it would not be
Capsule.
nearly as...
Whoop.
Wait, hang on. I don't know if it can focus on that. Oh wow, it
Capsule
can.
right
there you
there.
go.
Good,
Okay.
yeah.
So that jewel is what allows the balance to spin.
Uh-huh. Important jewel.
Yeah, very important jewel, very fine oil in there with very low friction. When that oil gets dried out and gummy, that's going to cause problems.
Yeah.
Low amplitude.
Yeah.
So chances are this watch could have a little piece of fuzz wrapped around the balance wheel,
Oh.
and it's causing resistance in the,
You're talking
the
like
swing of the balance
single
wheel.
speck of dust kind
Yeah,
of thing.
single little thing in there.
Yeah.
But this would then have that removed, go in this tiny little tray for cleaning. Everything would be cleaned, and we end up with
And
a
that's-
tray full
Oh,
of
there's
clean
your...
parts.
And now you have a stack. Here, wait. Let's see.
Yeah,
Wait,
my
let's-
stack.
Show us the stack of parts there.
There you go.
So we stack it up in here, goes into a little carrier.
If you're cool and
Oh,
have
cool.
them
Here, we
custom
can
made.
we'll go back to camera A now. You can now hold up things, stacks of things. Yeah.
So here's what we're left with, and this will get put into the cleaning machine and go through a whole cycle of cleaning.
Super cool.
Yeah.
And then are you want to show the other half, the back half of this operation?
Yeah, I can
Where it
show a
goes-
little bit of it.
Yeah. So now you've got a whole other selection of clean parts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, just like cooking television, we're switching
Yeah.
to
Boom! You guys don't know this, but I've had a chicken in the oven the whole time. I'm actually glad we've had these tools on this desk forever.
I
and
saw,
This is the first
yeah,
time Cameron
yeah.
said I've actually
Well,
made him do any work.
I'm happy that I just happened to land here for this episode because this is great stuff to watch for me.
So
This is sort of like
now-
what I
As a
promised
mega
everybody.
nerd.
Oh wait, I lost the shot.
Oh.
I should have. No.
So
This
Cameron,
is my
there we
own
go.
fault.
It looks like you've got 4 varieties of oil there.
Yes.
Those are all
My
going to
own
be
fault.
for
Let's fix
different
that.
functions around the watch.
So
Where's your oil?
we talked
there.
about the oil a little bit
Oh, look at
in
that. Looks
the
like
last
yeah,
episode.
Tattoo needle oil.
Yep.
So here's it's sold by number, right?
Yes.
What does the number signify? Anything of any real importance?
Maybe 1030 in there.
Well, I could tell you what I know, which is 1300 is thick, 9010 is thin. This BL here, the 9504 is not in this jar. That's why I got the X's next to it. The BL is Blasolube, which is it's like a lead grease
Oh, okay.
that you don't want to eat. The other ones you probably don't want to eat either, but this one I know for sure.
I was
contains
about
lead.
to have a little entree of 9415.
Now the 9415 is that goopy escapement oil.
Yeah, we talked about that in escapements
hardens
episode.
and then it goes from liquid to hard, depending on what's happening in the escapement.
Costs $20,000 a pound.
The very expensive oil. So this is how we clean it. We have the balance on there
Uh huh.
without the jewels. Because if you put this thing in the cleaning machine with the balance loose, you're going to have a tangled
Oh yeah, it'd be a
Mess
disaster.
around. spring,
bird's nest of a
Dude,
spring.
the balance never goes in the machine, right? Because
The
it
the
can't.
balance goes in the machine,
Oh,
but
it
it has to be supported from both sides.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get closer on what you're doing here.
So now I'm just taking the balance off
Okay.
because everything's clean. We put the good balance that we know is not damaged.
That
Put
balance
that
does
away.
not. Doesn't look like the same balance you have. Is it the same movement that you're putting my team?
It's the same movement. Good
Why
observation,
does
though.
that balance wheel look different? What'd you do?
So this balance wheel has 2 arms instead of 3, and it has weights.
Yeah, you can see
On
the
the
weights
edge.
there.
Why
on
does
the- on
why
this-
is that balance wheel
this photo.
different?
Just a different way of manufacturing it. Does the same exact thing, but a slightly different style.
But wait, this is still your movement, right?
So these are Swiss parts here.
Oh, okay. So
Same overall movement,
Right.
just a different balance.
okay, so you took apart the American one that you make, and you're putting back together the Swiss one. Is that? Did we not make that clear?
No, these are both the same movements, different balance wheel.
Oh,
You see?
yeah.
3 arms over here, no weights. 2 arms with weights.
Same purpose.
Same purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There really is no difference. One just has more parts.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And the one with the weights, are those weights like adjustable?
These weights are adjustable only if you file material off.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
You can remove material.
One-way adjustable.
Yeah. Exactly. One way.
Okay.
So we take that balance off. We put it safely in here. And we can go ahead and
Reassemble.
putting everything back together.
So that's cool for like common components, let's say, like that item. There's presumably maybe more than one person manufacturing that, or they've been manufactured at different points in time, and they just changed it from 2 to 3 at some point, and they both do the same purpose. But
Yeah, typically you're going to see the weights when you're dealing with a swan neck mechanism.
I don't know what that is.
Out
What's
of
a swan
tradition,
neck
so
mechanism?
out of our depth here.
The
Yeah.
swan neck is, you know what? Google swan neck. Get a picture of that.
I will.
Because it looks like a swan neck, and it is what touches the regulating arm. And you use a screw instead of directly touching the arm and adjusting it.
All right,
use
tell
a
me
screw.
what is a swan neck mechanism here? I got a lot of pictures to work with.
Swan neck right down here.
Here we go. Okay. Let's pull
So
that.
this is
pull
your
that up.
swan's neck.
Oh yeah.
So down at the very bottom of this image here,
Mm-hmm.
that's a swan neck.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, now that I've found it, what does this thing do?
So the swan neck, if you turn that screw, it presses the regulator arm,
Okay.
and the swan neck just presses it against that screw.
Oh,
keeps
that's
it there.
Oh, okay. That's it.
It's just a fancy way of moving the regulator arm.
Oh, okay.
But of course, this one doesn't have the weights on the balance, and it doesn't have the 2 arms, so
and we don't know
it
who's
doesn't
watching
really
that either.
show.
That's I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Thomas Nichint's vice versa watch.
Mm-hmm.
Available on James List's. That looks like I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Thank you for that explanation. That is appropriate.
So the reason we have so many oils, we have a thin oil, a thick oil, and then we've got a grease and escapement oil. The slow-moving parts are going to get a thicker grease. Fast-moving parts, thin grease. The fast-moving parts have very little torque in them, and if you put a thick grease on them, they'll stop.
Ah.
So as you kind of move from the barrel down to the escapement, you'll go
no,
from
wait.
thick to thin.
Oh, I have made a mistake and lost your watch
we
there,
are.
buddy. There we go.
So the oil, we use a little tiny needle here.
Let me zoom out a little more so we can see more of that lubricant. And
So the 1300 here,
is that a word? Sorry.
thick oil. They call it lubrification, is what we say in watchmaking.
Lubrification?
Yes,
Yeah.
lubrification.
Is that a
of
real
the,
word?
It's the word that they use in Switzerland when they're talking to us
Is
about
that just
the
fucked up
training.
English, or is that
You
a
hear
could
it,
be.
at least with the Germans, you hear it with respect to building motors
Yeah.
and components too.
So tiny little amount of oil on the tip of this pin, basically. This is an oiler for watchmaking, and we're just placing the oil exactly where we want it, which is right on that lower pivot of the barrel. So we place just what we want, just the amount we
a
need.
truly tiny amount of oil.
Tiny amount of oil.
Yeah.
Place your barrel,
Uh-huh.
and now you've only got oil where that pivot is touching the bridge itself. At that pivot point. No
Right.
oil should be wicking away. There shouldn't be so much that it's flowing everywhere.
Right.
Just where it's needed, and it'll stay put just from the surface tension. And that's it.
Okay.
Then, you've got all your other screws that pop in there. You've got the other side of the pivot.
Make him put this thing back together right now. No, we can't. We're in an hour.
Right?
Wow, I don't have time to watch you put this thing all back together.
But essentially, you go through, and you've got your different oils and the different wheels that pop in. Like this one will be oiled right in a particular place, dropped right in there. And you've got your bridges, which will go over. And everything has to be completely clean as it goes together. If you have one piece of dust on one of these jewels,
that's the end.
that's it. It might work for a short period of time, but that will pull all the oil away from where it needs to be.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Clearly.
And is this like same process roughly no matter the watch?
Yeah, same process, no matter what the watch is. However, when you get into chronographs, calendars, complications like you saw in the previous episodes, those will all take their own fine-tuning. On this watch, really the only fine-tuning that needs to be done is on the escapement with timing. So
Okay.
your one function of timing, you have to do some tuning on the escapement. But on a perpetual calendar or a grand complication, something like that, you're tuning every complication separately. You've got your time, then you're tuning all the calendar jumping, you're tuning the sound of the gongs, you're tuning every single part, every single complication to make sure everything functions.
How much is a service?
Thousands of dollars.
On this perpetual, the service is going to be thousands of dollars?
On the perpetual, probably $1,500 to $2,000.
But if you had a grand complication, it could run substantially more.
Yeah.
How long do those take? If you're servicing a grand comp, is this sort of 3-4 days of your coming into the office?
A grand comp?
He said he talks about only one dude in the world can service this thing, and it takes him months.
So stopping short of a grand comp, but some extraordinarily complicated watch could take you a week to service, perhaps.
So from
My
a watch,
Submariner was 2 weeks.
yeah,
Well,
and a lot of that has
time
to
and
do with
turnaround.
the fact that there's very few watchmakers.
Yeah.
We are very overworked.
Yeah.
We have piles and piles of work to do, and a watch like this will take half a day
Yeah.
to do a full service, because you also have dial and hands and case up and water tightness and all of these other things.
We
This
didn't
is
even
just
talk
the
about
movement.
the O-rings and,
All that.
But
So actually, now that let's finish this, but let's go back to the last part of the service as well. But so to get one of those watches serviced is like it's got to be months.
Yeah, you always think about
right?
sort of the man hours of time required for a task like that, and I mean, it seems like it could be 30, 40, 50 hours of work to do something really complex.
easily. Easily. Just if you go to one of these chronographs, like a vintage chronograph like this, you're looking at 1 to 2 days of work for just a chronograph.
Yeah.
You get to a perpetual calendar, and those are going to be...
Got to make friends with a watchmaker.
Really just occurred to me that I bought this watch without asking when the last time was that it was serviced.
I know a guy. He might be able to help you out.
Let's hope Crown and Caliber can service IWCs. I'm sure they can.
Yeah.
They have watchmakers. But that's so okay. Let's assume you have now reassembled and lubricated your movement, and now it's time to put the whole watch back together.
Yeah.
So now
from
now
there,
what?
once you have your movement all assembled, you will then have to put your dial and hands on. Mm-hmm. And a simple watch with 3 hands, no problem. Hour, minute hand, line up so the hour and minute hand are in the proper
correct place.
If you have a quartz watch, you have to make sure that your second hand hits on the hash marks properly. Mm-hmm. If it does not, it's very annoying, and you will have customers come back and say, this doesn't, it hits some, it doesn't hit the others.
Yeah.
So with a quartz watch, they have to line up exactly. With a manual wind watch or automatic watch, it sweeps, so it's easier to put the second hands on. But you get into a chronograph, and your chronograph hands, they better reset exactly where they need to reset. Some chronographs run, and the hour will keep running, or the minutes will keep running. Some jump from minute to minute. Mm-hmm. So again, there you need to make sure that they jump at the proper time. There's little springs that need adjusting. All of these little things add up in those more complex repairs and restorations, even if you have a watch that is so bad that it needs a restoration. But dial and hands can be a major part of putting a watch together. Some watches are just extra thin, and there's not a lot of room for the hands, and the hands almost touch. So the hands have to be very level and straight and go on there perfect so that they never touch each other. Or the hour hand never touches the chronograph subdial hands, things like that. Yeah. So there's a lot to simply casing up a watch and making sure that it's not only dust-free, but that no components on the dial side are going to be touching each other or damaging each other, and everything lines up perfectly. Because that is the part of the watch that gets looked at the most.
Well, obviously. And then what about water tightness?
Water tightness is a huge issue, especially with watches nowadays. There's a lot of complex closing systems. Some watches even have many different parts that have to come together in just the right way so that it holds itself together. Like that Catalil.
What was it?
The Vacheron Catalil.
The Vacheron, and then wasn't the Breitlings, like the pressure held them together, right? The old Breitlings, didn't pressure hold those together? Their case, whatever their case was called. It's not oyster case, but it was something, like...
You're talking about
something like that.
A super compressor?
Yeah, the compressor cases. Yeah.
Those I don't know too much about.
That's JLC, right? Master compressor, super compressor is JLC.
I think it's a case style it's sealing is improved by
By
atmospheres
pressure.
of pressure.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Where the components are actually free to move tighter, but they're limited on the expansion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you get fresh O-ring, presumably.
Yeah.
And in theory, your water tightness is.
You should get all new
retained.
O-rings, all new gaskets for crystals. If the watch is watertight when it goes in for service, it should definitely 100% be watertight when it comes out of service.
Yeah.
If it goes in and it's not water resistant when it goes in, there may be some structural issues that are keeping it from ever being water resistant again.
Yeah.
But if there's not any structural issues, then it should be able to be brought back to a water resistant watch before it goes back out. Mm-hmm. But it's very important, and usually a good watchmaker will let you know if there was some kind of structural problem and it cannot be water resistant ever again. Either it's a vintage watch and it was never made to be water resistant, or it's a vintage watch and the case has just worn out so much that
Well, like you said, if it
doesn't
got
seal
pitted or
tightly.
something, it wouldn't seal tight.
Yeah.
I think the last thing is like, I think there's the one, like I had the Pepsi GMT, like with a acrylic crystal as opposed to a sapphire crystal, which gets scratched and stuff.
Yeah.
So what is that? What's the stuff called to polish that up?
Cameron, no, obviously.
Polywatch, I think it is.
Polywatch? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I think that
I believe it's Polywatch.
I've been kind of is that what it's called? Let me look it up. Yeah, right? No?
Yeah, Polywatch.
Is that
That'll do it.
Yeah. It's on eBay. I'll just pull up eBay. So that stuff I haven't personally have you used this stuff?
I have used it.
It's good, right?
It's great.
Yeah. It's like I guess so with new watches you get sapphire crystals or in some cases Gorilla Glass, which is pretty neat. But
I didn't know they were doing that.
What's the name of the company that's doing Gorilla Glass? Vortic. The pocket watch that they repurpose old pocket watches, and they really wanted to do a full made in America thing, so they're using Gorilla Glass because it's American.
Yeah.
But if you have a acrylic crystal, I guess you can use this to get little scratches out of it.
It may not be recommended, but I have used like motorcycle visor polish for acrylic.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes
Same
sense.
stuff.
On
There's
old vintage watches.
Yeah,
I've
to
been
do-
able
to
to
do
buff
your
it out
vi-
slightly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you
obviously
can
it's just
use-
use a tiny bit of the stuff and polish it. But I think
Novus.
yeah, Novus is exactly the
Novus?
products I have.
What's
Yeah.
Novus?
Yeah.
How do you spell Novus?
Novus.
Yeah.
They're popular and if you need to polish Lexan or acrylic.
Yeah,
for
Novus is good
motorsports
stuff as
applications.
well because it's
This stuff?
they have multiple
Yep,
levels
they got
of
multiple
grit.
stages of exactly.
Oh, so that's another. Plastic cleaner, polish, or scratch. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'll probably work.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm too clumsy, so I can't. I'm part of the reason I'm selling that watch. I just keep nicking it. Can you? You're more careful than I am. I think.
I don't know. I smack into stuff too a lot, which is why I know that the Novus works pretty well for polishing scratches out of acrylic. But I just, I was working with Cameron yesterday on his Rover, and I was actually wearing this Weiss, and I took it off because I'm so accustomed with the old watches to be like, I'm going to put it he's like, it's all right, that thing's pretty tough. But
you're right. I've
sapphire crystal and
I've cracked
modern
that thing
stuff,
into a few things.
Yeah.
It's a tough watch. Good watch.
I mean, the only reason I would take a watch off working on a car would be scratching the car. I'm not so scared about damaging the watch, but damaging the car
damaging
with the watch.
paint of the car, certainly if you're on an expensive car.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good, solid maintenance and care overview. Right?
Yeah, and definitely if there's questions,
yeah,
love
comments,
to hear 'em.
questions. If you want to see us do a maintenance episode 2.0, and go further or less into other areas or whatever, like by all means, like let us know. We're happy to do a 2.0. Nick Huerta, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thanks, guys, for having me. It's a lot of fun, and thanks to Cameron for sort of painstakingly disassembling this watch outside of his workshop.
It's what he do. BeelineCoffee.com. Check them out. Code CHRONO, CHRONO, will get you 15% off anything in the Beeline Coffee store.
Absolutely.
As usual, follow Mr. Cameron Weiss on Instagram, Cameron M. Weiss, or Weiss Watch Company, which you can see in his bio there. Get 1818. It's pretty good. We got to get this man's numbers up.
Yeah.
Give him a follow. Follow me on Instagram, The Smoking Tire, and of course,
meats.
look at those meats. That's dinner last night. My other show, of course, the Smoking Tire Podcast on YouTube. Thank you to Crown and Caliber. Buy your watch, sell your watch, do what I just did, and trade a watch. Crowning Caliber, and we're gonna have to call them and see when this IWC was last serviced. Damn, the price value equation might have just gone way down. It tells good time now, though. All right, well, look, guys, thank you very much for coming, and I will see all of y'all next week. And give us a like on iTunes or a rating or whatever you want to do. Interact with us on iTunes if you have iTunes, because it keeps us high in the rankings. Subscribe on YouTube. And I'm tired of promoting.
You look at you guys there on the Crowning Caliber front.
Oh, wow. Jesus, look at that.
Bam.
Boom. Who's
Didn't even know that happened.
Who's romance? And you know how I like how they reversed.
I like the bromance.
They
Some good
reversed
vanity
the
shots
image
there.
of me.
That's touching.
Boom. That's on Crowning Caliber's newsletter. That was handsome.
I think I may have shot that one of you on the boat there.
No, Thaddeus did.
It was Thad?
Thaddeus did. Yeah, that was a good Thaddeus shot. All right, guys. I'll see y'all next week. We will be back, and I don't know what we're talking about, but we'll figure it out. Goodbye.